Martin had so much to lose. He'd won it 2 years in a row. He was a Grand Slam contender. Like, he was so much the favorite coming in. He only brought Leone to the show.
I mean, what it looked like from in person and what it looked like on the replay. I watched it a couple of times. He just was on the half stride. I mean, everybody can miss. And I think he just genuinely made a mistake. Hello, Sai. Welcome.
Good morning, Danny. Did you sleep
Good.
well?
Yeah, I did. I was exhausted, but we just want to welcome everyone who is tuning in to the newest iteration of Horse Bites now on Horse Network. It's going to be a conversation type situation where Sive and I, Sive being the super fan and me being the former rider, going to check in on what we deem basically the major events of our show jumping world throughout the year. And we are both in Calgary because we just watched the Masters and it was an interesting week of show jumping.
Unbelievable week of show jumping, I think. That and the $5 million prize fund also
Yeah,
helps with that.
that too. I think everyone was basically just here for that. I mean, we got a really good week overall, right? I mean, we saw some really good sport throughout the week, which actually a really difficult sport, and then we got the Nations Cup and then the Grand Prix, and it was interesting week because I think it really fluctuated, but people basically just kept being like the Grand Prix, the Grand Prix. That's all I care about.
Yeah, no, which is can be unusual. There's always a divide. We all think the Grand Prix is the biggest day, but a lot of the time, Nations Cup really hold a lot. Like, I think also in Akin, I think you made a really good point earlier in the week. Like, I think Spruce really would like the Nations Cup to hold such a big deal for everyone and be the really big day. And like, you even said you'd go as far as saying it was a bit offensive on how
It
people
was.
showed up for the Nations Cup this year.
Yeah, I think totally. I actually thought it was like really insulting. I don't know if it was necessarily offensive, but I think it was insulting to the organizing committee that they put on such a big event. And clearly, the Nations Cup is important here in Spruce, but a lot of people just didn't take it. Like a lot of people, as in like the countries that sent teams, didn't take it seriously. I mean, people sent very weak teams, and or like backed out at the last minute. Like Switzerland was supposed to send a team, then they didn't field one. They only sent Martin and Steve as individuals. Like in the end, I think it actually was not. It wasn't a Nations Cup the way that you would want like the biggest Nations Cup of the year to be, or one of the biggest Nations Cups of the year to be. Okay, it's not part of the LLN series, so like I understand that maybe people aren't taking it seriously, but I also don't think that people take the LLNs seriously. So that's a whole nother podcast. But we were talking about that, and that's actually a major thing anyway. If you just talk about shows in general. Like, should shows just be a Grand Prix because people actually just care about the Grand Prix? And what was the purpose of having all these other classes? Then you had the couple people like Martin, like Scott, who had one horse here. They had to complete one class, like one round, in order to be eligible for the Grand Prix, and then just sat it out and waited, like to just jump the one class. They didn't even jump for any of the other prize money. They didn't jump on the Nations Cup teams. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hotly debated all the time, the advantages, but then you look at the advantages and you think, oh yeah, what a great advantage. Scott won and Martin fell off the first jump on the second round. Like, our sport is so unpredictable, and you can get really caught up about it. Like, I was even saying, I was thinking like, well, look, that they come and they only have one horse and their major focus on the final round, they can get them like get a really nice like round around. They don't have to compete. They're not like tiring their horse out. But then on the other side, you have it that like Richie's winning all weekend, and then like look at Nina coming from her win in Spruce, and then she gets two more. Sometimes that momentum's the biggest thing in our sport. Or should it just be really strict? One horse for the Nations Cup, one horse for the Grand Prix, and then the classes earlier in the week decide your place in the Grand Prix. Like, that could be quite
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, I think even in like in tennis, like or even in Formula One, like the way that they do in qualifying dictates like how they actually get to start. In our sport, it's just like a random draw, which I guess is like puts everyone on a level playing field to some degree because it's fair. But on the other hand, it's not really fair when some people have jumped their horses all week. Like Kyle King, perfect example. Like he had to qualify for the Grand Prix, so he had three horses. He jumped literally every single class Like he jumped, including the 6 bar. So he jumped everything there was to jump with his horses. And then, okay, didn't jump the Nations Cup. So he had Saturday off, but then like it didn't dictate his position, but he had his horses were way more fatigued, but clearly didn't matter. So, I mean, maybe we can say that like qualifying should dictate placing, but on the other hand, does it actually? I don't know.
But I don't even know if it's a solution though, because I think that like it's okay that some things fall into the background, that there's a big end Grand Prix that everyone focuses on in terms of the media and results and maybe like following. That's the class everyone's looking at, and people are also looking at the Nations Cup. But I don't know, like you're a rider, I wouldn't know that as much. But like I think that like Richie's thinking he has a good week. I think Richie's probably not. Richie's like an angry guy.
Sure, Richie went home with some
But
money, so he like paid for his week. That was good. But like I don't think Richie's going home happy. He had the last jump down, basically lost the Nations Cup for Germany, and then didn't qualify for the second round on United. So I
yeah,
don't think Richie's going home happy.
but he's going home happier than he would be if it was only a Nations Cup, a qualifying round, and a Grand Prix.
Maybe, maybe. I mean, I guess he would be going home happier than if it like he had had basically, yeah, no good result. But on the other hand,
And like how
I think as a rider, like your psychology of how your week is entirely dictated by how the Grand Prix goes. Like if you ask somebody when they come home, like, oh, did you have a good week? And they'll be like, I sucked in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, but what about someone like Nina, who's brought her second horse because she's just off her win in SIGH-ve Masters. She's brought her second horse. She jumped in the Nations Cup, and and then she jumped in the Grand Prix. Not a great result, but not a bad round. But had two wins at Spruce. I think she's going home pretty happy.
I'm telling you, as a rider, people dictate like their whole week is dictated by the Grand Prix. I think they only care about. I don't say that that's necessarily how it should be, but I just know that like when you're riding and you go home at the end of the week, the only thing you care about is how did the Grand Prix go because that's all you've thought about all week is like prep for the Grand Prix, prep for the Grand Prix, and you're like emotionally thinking about it, and then like if it doesn't go well, then it just puts a damper on the entire experience. And if you had a good Grand Prix, everyone's like, it was a great week, it was amazing, even if the rest of the week sucked. Okay, so let's move on to the actual show. So, I mean, if we talk about the Grand Prix, I mean, we walked the course. Everyone was freaking the fuck out. Like, really, everyone, like people going up to the ground jury being like, this is not fair. This is too hard. I mean, Anderson Lima, who's like a famous course designer, was like, this is the toughest Grand Prix I've ever walked. He thought it was like the hardest class he'd ever walked. Everyone was going, this is harder than the Olympics. And especially the second round. I mean, the first round had like number 4 was a tall vertical over the open water, the smaller open water, which is like an obstacle that I think I hadn't even seen in like 10 or 15 years, and everyone was freaking out about it. They made the course designer change the poles. They had been solid gray poles, and they made the course designer go back because everyone was freaking out, being like, our horses aren't gonna jump this. And I kept thinking, being like, that's the smallest jump on the course. Like maybe that'll be the easiest. And then they made him put striped poles. So like everyone was freaking out. And then in the end, I don't know. We got 11 clear in the first round. I mean, I thought it was too easy in the end. I mean, I don't know if I would have said it's going to be too
No,
easy when I walked it. I thought it looked big and I thought it looked hard, but I did think that the first round looked significantly more straightforward. It had options. It really depended on what you were sitting on than the second round. I mean, the second round we can talk about in a second, but the first round, like, yes, I thought it was a big class. I mean, the jumps were obviously giant, but like it looked certainly more straightforward than the second. I didn't think we'd see 11 clear, but I thought we'd see a few
yeah, but
clear.
that's what really gets me because like it's so funny. We walked the course. Two really good people. I know Laura came off a bad week, but she withdrew, and then so did Tom and Tabasco, which I know jumped in the Nations Cup double clear the day before, but like he had a chance to win the class. Honestly, I think that horse had a chance
Yeah.
to do extremely well. I know he's young, so maybe like that's a bit far fetched, but to jump clear, to get into the second round and jump clear for sure. Like, so I think it's so easy in hindsight to come back and everyone like the first round was too easy, and I actually think it's funny when you see the faces of every single person that walked the course. Not a single person said, "Oh, that first round is too easy." Is it easier? Yes, but did anyone think we're going to get too many clears in a slightly mixed field in the first round? No. So it's another conversation to say, is 11 too many clear in the first round? But could like Leopoldo have built anything? Like could have Leopoldo have done anything else? He was literally told to change poles on his first round course, and people were giving him shit. And then like how can you win as a course builder? Like everyone's giving out, and
No,
you're
you
like
can't.
everyone's like this is unjumpable, and then you get 11 clear, and it's like it's too easy. It should have been the other way round. Like
I don't know. I don't know if I think it should have been the other way around. Like, I don't think that the first round or the second round course should have been the first round. On the other hand, like, I mean, you don't agree with this, but like, I don't like to see 11 clear in the first round of Grand Prix. I don't care if it's a 2 round Grand Prix or a 1 round Grand Prix. I don't. Yes, they took back 12 to the second round. So, like, it kept everyone, I guess, more or less on a level playing field, other than the one time falter. That being said, when you're watching a class of 40 jump, which is already too many, that's another question. That's a whole nother story. I think 40 qualifying is already too many because it makes for a boring first round. But when 11 go clear, everyone's like, it's too easy, whatever. Or I mean, and like, look, we had some of the best horse rider combinations in the world. We had some really good ones, but we only had 6 of the top 10. We didn't have everybody there. There were people who were like, I'm not going because Leopoldo's going to kill everybody and it's going to be too much. So like, people didn't show up because they were afraid of how the course was going to be. And then in the end, we get 11 clear, and I'm like watching the course, and I'm like, oh, another, oh, another. Like, time was snug because like I thought the most interesting thing is that in the beginning Donald Whitaker jumped first, jumped clear jumping, but had 4 time faults. And you see him walking out of the ring, and he's like, it's impossible. It's impossible. No one's going to be able to do it. And then Daniel Joycer goes in and is like, how many seconds under the time
I think he
allowed?
was. I
Like,
think it was only about 2 seconds, but yeah, he was well in.
but still, 2 full seconds under the time allowed, and he does it like it's nothing. So then, everyone's like, it's too hard. And then it's like, well, in the end, actually, it's totally fair. Honestly, he could have maybe made the time tighter. 11 clear is too many. I'm sorry. It makes for a boring
Yeah,
class.
you think that, but then like you were not on the sidelines then because some really really good people had time faults, Christian and Checker, because Richie had a pole. It started to get like poles became very expensive, and poles should be really expensive in jumping. Like I actually think it's a little bit more your rider point of view coming in thing, being like, it's not fair. I jumped a one time fault and I didn't get into the second round. I want chance of prize money. Like it isn't fair, but it's really top sport. Like I know Christian looked like he really took it easy on Checker because he was thinking maybe I have a really good shot in the second round. He didn't get in. I don't really like to be super harsh. Like I don't really have any like sympathy for that because I'm like you. It's top sport. It's 5 million on the line. As a rider, the only thing that you can do your best, jump a double clear, and then if a jump off comes into play, that's a whole other story. But like jump clear, and that's what they had to do yesterday, and it was actually kind of perfect. One person with the time fault got into the second round. I didn't find the first round boring because maybe if like all of the good people had jumped clear, I would have been like, well, I don't care about anyone else that's missing out. But like it came down to
But that's my point. But that's my point. Because you saw not all the good people jump clear and you saw some of the weaker combinations jump clear, that tells me that the course wasn't
but who
hard
was
enough.
weak in the second round? Who would you claim as weak in the second round? Because I don't think any weak
I mean,
people.
unexpected. I don't think. Okay, look, nobody was weak. But if you're talking about your top combinations, okay, Martin jumped a super easy clear. Richie was out because he had one down. Checker and Christian are out. But like, those are the combinations that I would have liked to have seen jump the second round. Like, those are the ones you expect to jump. So it's exciting that they don't get in. I'm not saying that it's not exciting that they don't get in. But then when you see some of the more
Who
unexpected
was
combinations
unexpected that
get
got
in, you're
in?
like, well, well, I think Kyle was unexpected to get in. Roy Van Beek, maybe Jorna Sprea. I mean, those are people that are obviously super riders at the top of the sport here doing well, but they're not ones that you would expect to necessarily walk in yesterday. I mean, I don't even know if Scott expected to come in on a horse that it can be really inconsistent, was bad here last year. Like, I don't even know if he expected. Yes, Scott obviously is one of the best riders in the whole world. So I'm not saying that he didn't deserve to be in there. I'm just saying that, like, I think there were a couple unexpected ones in the second round that shows you that, like, all right, it was clearly very jumpable. And I think that I'm not saying that it shouldn't be jumpable, but you come to Calgary, you expect to see the hardest, toughest Grand Prix. Like, I found Dublin Grand Prix where there was one clear round to win it. the most exciting class all year. Like, so when I see 11 clear of what's supposed to be the 5 million hardest Grand Prix in the world, like I was disappointed by the first round. That being said, the second round made up for it. And we did get a great class overall. I'm just saying the first round I
But
didn't
you're
love.
talking about it like retrospectively in hindsight, like as like a wish of, oh, how you would have liked to play out. Even in Dublin, like Alan Wade said that if like it played out amazingly, but if it jumped again, I think we would have seen 6 or 7 clears. Like so many people could have jumped that again. It was not. I think definitely yesterday's course was on par. And if everyone had walked around, the top riders in the world had said, I think the first round's too easy, but the second round's killer, I would have said, yeah, Dani, you have a good point there. They didn't. Everyone said from walking the course that it was really hard, and people pulled out from the first round because they thought it was too hard. So then we're actually not going off any plausible, changeable aspect that you could do, and we're going off like the absurdity of our sport that always is, like the
But
results.
that's a good question. I mean, that's actually maybe a really good question because like why is it that we've all been in this sport for decades and somehow we still have such a bad understanding of what's a hard course and what's not? I mean, that actually is more shocking to me than anything. You know, people always walk the course and they're like, how many clear? And I always hate to say an answer because I think it's a fucking crapshoot. You have no idea. Like if you walked Alan Wade's course in Dublin, you would have said like, I don't know, 6 or 7. And then if you walked yesterday's class, you would have been like, maybe 5, 6 jump clear. And then you see double that. So like nobody has any idea. But that's the better question is why is it that we have such a bad understanding? Why is it that professionals that have been in the sport for so long have such a bad understanding after all this time and all this like knowledge of what a difficult course is? Like, why are we not able to predict that? Do we not have enough stats? Do we not have enough like real grasp of the field strength? Do we not like know enough? I don't understand. Like why do you think no one is able to really accurately predict how things are going to go other than the course designer who clearly got exactly the result he wanted
I know. That's why, like, I actually think
despite everybody
course
bitching.
designers are just worth so much. Like, I think it's so impressive what they do because the margins are so fine, and they're really like knowledgeable as well in the sense of like Alan Wade in Dublin was like he was praised and everyone said it was so good, but he was like, yeah, small difference between like a hero and a villain. If no one jumped clear, everyone would have been bitching. It's too hard. Like people just love to give out, and like Leopoldo gets so much stick. And Steve even said, like at the end of the day, and I think he said he was second at the early stages of his career, and said like, "This is too hard. This is ridiculous. Why are you doing this?" And he like now thanks Leopoldo for improving him as a rider and his horses as well. And one thing that like came up again and again, I think throughout yesterday's class was like obviously like rich coming from me, but like just looking at 5 star riders, there is a big differentiation of actual rider quality in the 5 star class. And the really good riders shine in Spruce every year. Like look at the results in Spruce. They're really good riders. Like Daniel Deusser does so well in Spruce all the time on different horses that I actually don't know if some people would even get around the 5 star class. And he comes in again and again and again, does really well. Scott, definitely, I don't think people would argue like top 3 best riders. Steve, okay, Martin and double winner, he fell off yesterday, which we can talk about, but like jumped the first round, super easy. Probably had a good shot of jumping clear in the second round, just freak accident.
Yeah.
Like good riders shine in Spruce, and like the course designer, yeah, he was a bit off, but yeah, why we can't predict it, I think it's because our sport, we do lack stats, but our sport is really unpredictable, and I think it will be forever.
Yeah, I mean, look, that makes it really exciting too. I mean, then you end up getting really different kind of classes. So I agree. I mean, I think there's just an unpredictability with the horses that we just can't. We're just not able to ever put our finger on. I mean, that's what makes the sport so challenging. I mean, that's what makes it fun to do. That's what makes it fun to watch because, like, you don't really know. You know, it's not like the number one seeded player is most likely to win. Like, you have no clue. Yes, are the top riders the ones that tend to be in the mix more often? Of course. You know, they're more consistent, they're able to do it on multiple different animals. But on the other hand, like to really predict the winner yesterday, I mean, you could have said Richie, you could have said Christian, you could have said Martin, but I don't think most people were even had Scott on their radar. Funny enough, I don't even think if you think back to the Olympics, I don't think most people had the British team on
No.
their radar for winning gold either. So maybe we need to stop. And they won the Nations Cup this week. So maybe we should pay attention to the British a little
And
bit more. But like Ben would have been somebody I would have said maybe was in the mix. And then he had a couple down.
yeah, he didn't. I had a feeling for him because I feel like and that's why our sport goes. Like, it's not based on stats. I just feel like Ben's due a big win in a weird way because he's like has really the top of the horses, and he hasn't really won like a big Masters in like feels like a long
Yeah.
time.
He won a lot of classes. He won a bunch of classes, right, in Brussels, FX
Yeah,
last year.
he's won loads, but I feel like he's just due a really big win. So like that was
I
where
agree.
my
I
feeling
agree.
came from. But like if you actually looked, he hadn't jumped so good all week. Um
No, he actually
and
had not a good week at all.
but like and Scott is just somebody that like because of the caliber of rider he is, his horse is so inconsistent. You kind of I think most people that follow the sport would have said, "Oh, Scott could not make it like not get around the first course, or he could win it."
Or
And
he
I
could win
think
it. Yeah,
that's that
totally.
kind of horse, and that's him.
No, I agree. I agree. Okay, let's talk about the second round.
Yeah, I think.
So second round was a whole different ball game, right? Which is what made it really exciting. Like I was sitting there edge of my seat, like, come on, what's gonna happen? Like it was really, really exciting, which was great. But it was actually like people walked it being like it's unjumpable. And the matter of fact
Well,
is that it was unjumpable. Literally no one could clear the last line. I would have loved to have seen Martin go through it. I mean, we didn't get that opportunity because that was
yeah.
insane what happened. I
Can you
felt terrible
actually
for him.
talk a little bit about that? Because maybe you can talk a bit of what happens there, how that happens. We know anyone can miss, but like Martin literally came in with so much to lose. Everyone came in to win that class, and Martin had so much to lose. He'd won it 2 years in a row. He was a Grand Slam contender. Like he was so much the favorite coming in. He only brought Leone to the show. Like there was just so much sitting on him pressure wise, but like I would have put him up to it. I would not have felt like that was a. Do you think that
Yeah.
was a crack under pressure? Can you just talk a little bit about that whole fiasco?
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. If you watch what happened, I mean, he jumped the first round, so simple. I mean, he literally just like popped around it like it was nothing. Came out, obviously had a ton of confidence. I mean, Martin is someone who's been under tremendous pressure. Like this is not somebody who cracks under pressure normally. I mean, he's won it 2 years before. He like you said, I mean, he had everything kind of riding on this with the one horse here all week. He'd been sitting around. I mean, it is easy as a rider to get in your own head. I mean, pressure is no joke. I mean, you can say that people handle pressure really well. Scott sort of had very little pressure, because he had no stakes. Like he was just here. He was like, I just hope I win. But like it didn't really matter. Martin had everything. Rolex testimony. He's, like you said, was going for the hat trick, 5 million on the line. He also would have gotten the 500 bonus for winning two in a row. Martin had everything to lose, and you can say that even the best of the best under pressure can crack, and like crack or not, I mean Martin just made a mistake. Like, maybe we weren't sitting on the horse, so it's very really impossible for us to make a call and say like the horse left a stride early. I mean, what it looked like from in person and what it looked like on the replay, I watched it a couple of times. He just was on the half stride. I mean, everybody can miss. Doesn't matter who you are in the world, how good you are. I mean, obviously, those who miss less are better, but like everybody can miss. And I think he just genuinely made a mistake. Like he just miscommunicated with the horse. The horse, he was thinking one more stride, and the horse took off because he was trying to get to the base of number one so he could make I think, a tight turn back to two. And it just was too much on the half stride. Maybe was unclear in his aids to the horse. Just, I mean, anything can happen like that. It's crazy unexpected. You don't expect it out of somebody like Martin and or Leone, a horse that's been here and is super confident here and knows these materials. But like, look, we saw literally the exact same thing happen last year to McLean at the first jump, almost the same location, same like literally the same jump. It's like those brick columns, and it was like maybe moved over a little bit, but off the right lead, the exact same thing happened to McLean. Clearly the best of the best still can make mistakes like that. I mean, it was unexpected. I was really super sad. I felt so terrible for Martin. Like, I wanted Martin to win. Like, I love to see those kind of hat tricks and records made, like broken and history made. Like, I wanted Martin to win. And to see that was like, you never want to see that in the sport, but it also made for incredibly exciting because it also then opened the door for other people. The saddest part for me was that I wanted to see him
I
try
know.
that last line because nobody got to jump through that last line clear. They either had the double down or they had the bicycle down, which, by the way, the bicycle, for those of you who were not there and didn't walk the course, was clear over my head. It was massive. It was the tallest bicycle I've like ever seen. It was huge. It was probably almost 170. It was enormous. And I like I would have liked to have seen Leone J try to jump that. I think Martin had the skill level to execute it. And Leone, has jumped well here, has obviously won the class, has jumped through those double Liverpools. Like, you knew that he wasn't going to struggle there. Like, I just would have loved to have seen that. And that feels like a missed viewing from the sidelines. On the other hand, like, I feel terrible
Yeah,
for Martin.
it just without a doubt. I just would call it almost like a freak accident. Like it's I don't think you need to go into it so much. I don't think
Yeah.
Martin needs to worry about it. Just a shit happens kind of moment. But terrible. Like
Yeah.
so sad for the whole team. But
Yeah.
actually just so we just finish a little bit on the Grand Prix with that line. Like I don't think we need to go too much into the jump off. Because it was like as it was straightforward. But just
Scott put in a super solid round. Like, it was great. He put the pressure on. Kyle actually had the time, which is a little bit too deep to the plank on a bit of on an ankle, unfortunately. I mean, that's the sport.
I liked the order of the results.
I know, it was good. It was, and like you said, I mean, I was a little bit disappointed by the first round, but the second round made up for it tremendously. Like, I was on the edge of my seat for the second round. It was great.
And can you just to finish up the show, just talk about that line, that double Liverpool setting the ground to
Yeah.
the bike.
So the double Liverpools were set oxer with the red poles, and the distance in between those double Liverpools is so incredibly short that like people were walking it and they're like, the horses are going to bounce it. But you have to remember, when it's an oxer, it rides long. Like, nobody wasn't kicking. They were all jumping in and being like, come on, get out, get out. You got to get across that back pole the last jump. Like, it rides super scopy. It doesn't ride like where you have to sit up and like land in there and wait. You jump in and you hope the horse can get out, because even though it walks so short, oxer with the Liverpool, like, it's just a lot for the horses. They land really shallow. And then it walked like a proper 3.5. Like, I think people were like, is United Touch going to do 3 to the bicycle jump? I would have loved to have seen what Richie chose to do there. Like, I don't think, I was talking to Christian during the class and he was like, no, it's definitely 4. It's never going to be 3. It's definitely 4. It walked 3.5. Like, it walked choking. And clearly it was basically too tight. I mean, people couldn't get it done. I think Scott was the only one maybe to clear the bike, right? He had the
Yeah, but do you know why Scott cleared it?
because
Because
he
he
landed,
landed in the middle of that
yeah, because he
oxer.
landed so
So
shallow off a B of
he
the
had that
double.
full 4.
Yeah,
Then
he
he
could
didn't
fit the
have to
4.
adjust. He could ride. Yeah, but he could also ride at the 4
Yeah.
because you needed to ride at it. It was over
Yeah, it was
one.
a
It
huge
was
jump.
165, 170. So you couldn't really be coming backwards.
No.
I actually think that Richie would have had the best chance to clear that whole line because I think he would have done the 4. Because when you see how adjustable United is, like he actually can, and he has so much power. He could have done the 4 and probably popped the
Yeah.
bicycle. Like he did 6 after the water.
Yeah.
He did that 6 after the water where loads of people were doing 5.
Yeah.
Like no one,
Yeah, I
like
think
he's
actually
just
Scott
crazy
and Richie
adjustable.
were maybe one of the only two that
Both did
actually
6.
did 6, which worked out well for them. I think, I mean, maybe Richie, I don't know. I would have loved to have asked Richie if he was out, if he actually would have done, if he was planning to do 3 or if he was still thinking 4. But okay, I mean, overall, it was a really good class. We didn't get the dream jump off that you would have liked, which would have
No,
been Christian, Richie, and Martin.
we were
But
far off that.
we still got a really exciting class, and it was nice to see like the underdog against the, your top champion, Olympic champion, and it was a worthy class, so it was exciting.
Yeah, and we were right. Like, okay, I'll give it to you. We say first round a little bit too easy, but we did say at the start, like It's like, I don't know if we're going to see a double clear today, and we didn't.
No, and we didn't. And we didn't.
So
And actually, I was talking to the owners of Spruce, and they were saying they can't remember the last time that a Grand Prix was actually won without at least one double clear. So
I
this was the
know.
only, like, the first Grand Prix in a long time where there wasn't a single double clear. So obviously, it was challenging jumping. I mean, there's no question about that.
Okay, so I know we could talk about it forever, but we don't want to
No.
bore the hell out of everyone else. So we'll get on to our hot takes.
Okay,
So
you're up.
me
What's
first.
your hot take of show jumping from this week?
My hot take from this week is that in the current format of our sport, that I think is so oversaturated with five-star show jumping, we are not going to see another Grand Slam winner. Because I was thinking, like, if we recorded this on Friday, I would have been like, we're gonna see another Grand Slam winner in Geneva. Like, I was so set on Martin. I was like, he's gonna win Spruce, and then he has a home thing, and we're gonna see one this year. And that probably would have been my hot take. But seeing how difficult it is at the Grand Slams, like seeing or at the Masters event at like each leg, how hard it is to win a single one, how much pressure is put on the rider to do so, and then how much distraction in the year. Like if they were the only like 4 events of the year, I
It's
would
true.
say I think we would see it again because I think all the top riders would put everything like they're a championship preparing for those 4 events. But there's so much dispersion within the sport that I just don't know how we're going to see another Grand Slam winner. So I think Scott is like, yeah, like forever unchaseable in my opinion.
I mean, I always thought that, like, with the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown in racing in America, like we didn't see one for so many years. It was like 30 some odd years that we didn't see another one, and everyone was like, "It's impossible! It's impossible!" I am going to disagree with you and say eventually we are going to get one. I just don't know when. But I do agree that it is incredibly difficult, which is why there's a huge bonus and why it's the Grand Slam, because it is something that everybody chases, and it's clearly very, very difficult. But I don't think that Scott is going to win another one on Hello Jefferson, however. Sorry,
Wow,
Scott, but I don't think that's happening.
that's
I think that
not allowed
Jefferson
to
is a
be.
little too inconsistent for that.
That's not allowed to be your hot take.
No, that's not my hot take, though.
That's not a
My
hot take.
hot take, on the other hand, is that riders in our sport are kind of pussies.
That was swung around this week.
That was. I mean, people were saying that word a lot. And I mean, it's very easy for me on the sidelines to say, like, oh man, everybody's chicken these days because I don't have to do it. On the other hand, like, there was a lot of bitching and moaning and complaining that, like, it's too hard, it's too hard. And like, even the meter 50, I think on Thursday, which was the Grand Prix from 1976, like 15 people pulled out because they're like, it's too hard. I'm like, the sport from how many, 30 years ago
That's
is too, or 25 years ago, no, 50 years ago is too,
too hard for you.
is too hard. And now the Grand Prix is too hard and everyone's complaining and making Leopoldo change the polls. I'm sorry, like Steve said, he apologized for complaining about the courses because he's like, it made me a better rider, it made my horses better. Good for Steve to say that, to like have some self-awareness and be like, you know what, I was wrong, like everyone needs to suck it up. And like, sometimes I actually think Steve can be a little too old school in his thinking, but on the other hand, like, I think that my hot take is that everybody is kind of a pussy. No one had a bad experience. No horses walking away from yesterday scared. I think it was a challenging day of show jumping, but like, the horses are not going to walk away from there like they had some terrible experience. I think that the riders are like getting more and more chicken shit. And look, they did go in there and they jumped it, but everyone walking in wasn't like this was everyone was like tension and nervous and scared and like, this day is like too
But
much.
that's how
And
it
then in the
should
end,
be. It's a $5 million
yeah,
Grand Prix. Like that's what I think with the riders. I'm a little bit like I can understand, and I think they should be like that. But I think that like at the same time, so should the course be. Like I think that's the perfect sport. I think it should be high tensions jumping a $5 million Grand Prix, and I think that then. But I
yeah,
think that
totally.
they shouldn't change it.
Yeah, clearly. Look, I mean, everybody, like, I don't think anyone, like I said, yesterday, horses are going to come away from yesterday having learned a lot, like they jumped new jumps or old jumps that they haven't ever seen. You know, they had to jump the dry ditch. They had to jump I think my Prince, they said, had never even ever jumped a dry ditch before. Like, I don't think these horses are coming away from yesterday having had a bad day at all. Like, the horses learned something. The riders certainly learned something about themselves. Everyone had to deal with the tension and the pressure and the stress. And then the riding skill. I mean, there was a lot of challenges and questions asked yesterday. I think people rose to the occasion in the end, but there's just so much complaining going into it. I just I don't know. Everybody's gonna suck it up. That's my hot take.
I think your hot take may be a true take.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna call it a day with that because we could talk for hours and hours about the class, and we're talking hours before this podcast, and we will probably talk many hours more about it. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to our first episode of the Horse Bites podcast. We will be back with you guys for what we deem the biggest events of the year, and that's our opinion from my professional standpoint, from SIGH-ve, who is our super fan, and she knows all the stats.
Basically
But
calling me a nerd. Show
yeah,
jumping nerd.
yeah, but the coolest show jumping nerd I know. All right, well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will be back with you guys for another episode of the Horse Bites podcast coming up, following our sport, chatting about the major events and major topics, and we hope you follow along. Thanks for joining, and thanks,
Thank
SIGH-ve.
you. Thanks, Dani. Let's go catch a flight.
Yes, off we go, back to Europe. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.